Hey there, I'm Lee Rowley, and this is Lee After Dark. Why? Because there's more to being a business leader than just business. Each episode, one brave entrepreneur ejects the elevator pitch and just gets real. Today, I'd like to welcome Alyea. Alyea, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for asking, and thank you for spending time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
You
I'm
joining
really,
us.
really, really looking forward to it.
Excellent. So the rules are simple. For the
Yep.
next 20 minutes, we can talk about anything you want but your business.
Okay.
Afterward, you'll have 5 minutes to pitch up a storm. But if you mention your business during the interview, you'll lose 1 minute of pitch time for each infraction. So we're
Oh
gonna keep
my
you
gosh.
honest here, right? Yeah, it's
Okay.
pressure's on. Yeah. Okay, you ready to play?
Yeah, let's play.
Right on. So I'm gonna go ahead and set the timer here and what are we getting into for the next 20 minutes?
I really would like to talk about the concept of home. Where does this concept come from?
Okay.
And the reason for that is because I've lived in different places throughout my life, and maybe it's something that I've sort of been searching for myself all my life, figuring out, is it a location, is it a place, or is it within me?
Okay.
So yeah.
So what prompted this journey? This concept of home.
This concept of home, well, I would say, I was born in Colombia, South America,
Okay.
and I was there until about age 12, almost 13. And I thought I was going to live there my whole life. When you're a kid, that's your whole life, your whole world. I had friends since I was like literally born. These were my buddies, and we were in school together. We saw each other every year. And one year, my mom got remarried to an American. And within a few months, they informed us that we were going to be leaving the country. And that was it. That was the end of me being in one place. And so after that, we immigrated to Costa Rica. And then I had my first immigration experience of what it was like to not be in a place that was home.
What was that like?
Oh, it was, um, I, I think I was confused. It felt confusing. Because even though it was also a Spanish country, there's so many different words that are not the same. And you could say one thing and it could mean something completely different. And so we even had this thing that happened with this lady. She had this dress made out of dots, and she looked really pretty in the dress. And so we were sort of playing outside with my sisters, and the lady came by, and we were like, "Oh, Mrs. So-and-so, your dot dress looks really pretty." And we used the word for dot that we use in Colombia. And later on, she stopped by to reprimand my mother on how bad manners, or that we had such bad manners,
Oh no.
because that word dot in Costa Rica actually was a bad word. And so,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, so
Wow.
that's like already within the same language in two different places, it's different. And of course, um, entering a new place where you're trying to break into social circles. The school that we went to, people had been knew each other since they were little, so the same circumstances I was in when I was in Colombia. So breaking into these circles where kids have known each other forever, is not that easy. And so so I think it began there. And then we were there for about a year, and then we immigrated to Florida. And that was equally maybe more challenging to go now to an English speaking country and get adjusted to what the culture was like there. So yeah.
Were you taught or exposed to? I know English is kind of
Yeah.
everywhere, more or
Yeah.
less, but how much was it emphasized when you were growing up?
A lot. So
Okay.
luckily we when I was in Colombia and also in Costa Rica, we went to a bilingual school. So that was easy. But again, what people don't explain to you is that you can learn you can know the words, but you don't really understand the culture
Sure.
or how people express themselves until you're there. And there were so many things that people would say to me that I just felt so confused because it didn't make sense. And even something I remember the first time I was in my class and they said, "What's up?" That was, it's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I was like,
Well,
I just was literally looking up. I'm like, what do you
why are we concerned about this?
yeah. So yeah, it just felt so confusing. And even like in Colombia, people are always sort of thinking of each other a lot. And, that happens to a lesser extent in the US. People do think about each other, but it doesn't happen in the same way. And yeah, I remember many times making choices with people like, "Hey," when there's like the last piece of cake, and I said, "Oh, you can have it." And then they're like, "Okay, great," and they would eat it. It's like, wait, that's not how it works. You're supposed to say, "No, you can have it." And we go into this little dance back and forth until we sort of like decide that we're going to share it.
Right.
Because this is how it's done, or how it was done in Latin America,
Mm-hmm. Right,
And,
sure.
yeah. And then of course time goes by and I'm living in the US, then studying. Did high school and then university in the US. And then now when I go back to Colombia, I'm not from there anymore, but I'm still not from the US either, because
Okay.
my mind has changed, the way I think has changed. I don't really fit where I come from, but I also don't fit where I live anymore, because I'm I have a part of me that lived and breathed in another place, and so now I'm changed forever. And so then you feel like, well, then where is this home? Where is this concept of home? Where do I fit?
Yeah.
Where do I go?
And so where did that question lead you?
Mm, I think it led me to try to move more.
Okay.
Like,
Okay, so we crack the veneer, you find out what else is out there, and you
yes.
decide that you want more of it. So tell
Yeah.
me about those travels.
Yeah, so I had two things happen in my life simultaneously. The first was that when I turned 18, or was I 19? Okay, I don't remember exactly. I did an exchange program and I went to Paris. So that was like my first big thing.
Mm.
French was my second, or was like my minor in school. And so so I went and I studied there. So of course now it was a summer semester, so it wasn't spring or fall. And of course that completely changed me to be now in Europe and adding those thoughts and ways of doing things, which also felt so different than the Americas. Like
Mm.
then it's a whole other layer of people don't realize when you come to Europe and of course each country is different, but the way they think, it's very, very different. And well, then of course then uh, after school I took a small job which then took me to Texas. So I worked in Houston, Texas, and I was there for a couple of years, and that was really, really interesting. And of course, while in Texas, then I started traveling more. So then I traveled to Europe, to Scandinavia, to Spain, to France, to the UK, to different places in Europe. I can't think of them all because I've been to so many places. I went to New Zealand. Yeah, so I started sort of expanding myself, and then at some point I got tired of that job and I decided that I wanted to pursue more schooling. So in my pursuit of more schooling, I packed all my things and drove my little car across the country, and then moved to California, and then I lived in California. So
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So anyway.
So did did this process of the moving and the traveling
Mhm.
and the adjusting to new cultures, and then I what caught my eye is just going from a European country to Texas, and that's no that's no comment on anything from Texas, but having been there and having been to Paris and some parts of Europe, it's definitely a different world. What did this bring you closer to your understanding and your own concept of home, or did it just confuse things more?
I think that's an interesting question. Did it confuse things more? I think each step, not just like the Texas Paris step, or Paris Texas step, but also the Texas California step. It was more like, okay, I don't fit here, just like I felt in Florida. I don't fit here, and then Paris I liked, but I was like, okay, I can't see myself living here long term. And then I'm gonna try to search for the next place where maybe I could fit. And so and so it's more like this, like trying to search for where is the place that can now feel like home.
Okay.
And yeah.
So you were always hoping that the next one was perhaps the one.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. And you asked you asked a rhetorical question at the beginning of all this, is it a place?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that at some point it dawned on you that maybe it wasn't a geographical location.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what brought that realization on, and what's that done in terms of, how you feel?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that happened is that in California, maybe because of the nature of California, although there are many places like this throughout the States, but where I was living, there was quite a lot of people that had a similar background. They had moved or had these different experiences where they had moved and traveled a lot. And I suddenly felt like, oh, when we were like in a party together or we could hang out together, then I was like, oh, it feels like home here in this moment with people who are like me, who are, I guess what they term like a third culture kid or something like this. Like this feels very homey and cozy. And here in Amsterdam, they use a word when it's very cozy, it's gezellig. And it's a word that means like, it's just so warm and rich and lovely, like a warm blanket, and it happens when you're together with people that you really care about or that you have some kind of, feeling with or care with. So yeah. So I think that was my first sort of realization of that.
So home becomes something more of a community rather than a geographical location, in a
Yes,
way.
I think that's one part of it.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the second part of it occurred to me when I moved to Amsterdam. And that's where I live now. I've been here 3.5 years. And the other part was that it sort of dawned on me that in my heart, I just had pieces of all these places inside of me now, I was like my own inner melting pot, like.
I love that.
So
that's going in the liner notes.
Yeah. And so, so my own, inner melting pot. And so then I just sort of take it everywhere I go, right? And it comes with a certain type of skill set, which also has to do with being able to make friends quickly, being able to figure out how you find work, how do you orient yourself to a place, and then how do you find like-minded people. Not like-minded in the sense I don't need to have people around me that have the same exactly beliefs that I have. It's more people who've had a variety of experiences and are kind of rich in different types of experiences.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. It's more about the openness than the actual. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. Wow. Okay, I went a little bit on a rant there, but
No, that's okay. This is what this is for. We love rants around here.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So so you've come to a point where you've realized that this tapestry of what you've experienced has become you, and that you can take this with you wherever you go. So do you still travel? Do you still visit new places and take that with you and think, okay, how would I have experienced this 5 years ago? I mean, I won't go much beyond that. I can tell you're a lot younger than I am. So, for me, it would be like 20 years ago. But, I mean, but does that ever occur to you that like the way that you would have experienced something new has changed so dramatically because of what you have experienced?
Yeah. Now that you're bringing it up, but it hasn't quite, until you brought it up, I hadn't really thought about it in quite that way.
Okay.
But what you're making me realize with that question is that I'm much more uh, one, it has become a regular part of my life to engage with new travel experiences or going to new places.
Okay.
So I definitely, like this year, I think I was in a new country or a new city at least once a month. So that was sort of like
That's
my,
impressive.
yeah. Well, it's not so hard when you're in Europe.
That
Yeah.
is true.
Yeah. It's a bit harder if you're in the US. It's a very big country. And so that is something I it's almost a little bit like, I don't know if I call it like an addiction, but it's a bit of like I need, once I've been somewhere for too long, like 6 weeks or something, I start getting that itch, like I need to explore something. It brings me joy to like experience something different. And the second part, which now I'm forgetting what I was going to say about how I'm noticing that the way I approach it has a much more laid back approach. Like if I think about my first trip overseas by myself, when I went to Paris when I was 19, I was so anxious and I felt so scared. And I was like, I knew it was what I needed to do, but I was completely, I remember being in my little dorm room, and before we met with the other students, because I arrived earlier, and I was like in my dorm room crying a little bit because I felt so scared I had put myself in this situation. And so it doesn't mean that being in new situations still not scary. It still is, but it's a bit more like, well, I've been here before. I know what it's like, and I always have managed. It's gonna be okay,
Right.
and you sort of have this trust that you'll figure it out. Still, things happen when you travel. I've had money stolen and things like this, but I've always been safe, and I haven't gone anywhere super crazy. Yeah, I think those are the two things I can think of
Well,
that
that's
have
wonderful.
changed.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. I'm glad no place too crazy, so you're not planning on hanging out in downtown Beirut or anything like that. Okay,
Probably
cool.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's absolutely fascinating. I love, what you've been able to do, and one of the things I enjoy about doing this show is I meet so many people who have had these rich experiences, and like, I don't have to do it. I don't have to deal with the plane travel and the lines and the queues and stuff, because like I just get to hear you guys, share, what you've experienced and what you've learned, and it's amazing what you've been able to do. I really have a lot of respect and admiration for what I call the nomad generation. That actually says, you know what, I'm not going to wait until I've worked for 40 years to try to pack this all in if my body still works. You're like, no, man, we're going to do it now. And so like, huge amount of respect for that. And I love it. So you've got a couple minutes left. Any
Yeah.
advice or thoughts or tips that you have for our audience?
Um, on travel and I would say, well, of course, I would say just do it. Yeah, go out of your comfort zone. I think it it has at times it can feel lonely because it's out of our comfort zone, and there are times when you're doing it, you're in a new place that you don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know who you're going to meet, and you don't know if you will meet anyone, and you could go a whole day without talking to another human except for the barista you order coffee from at some new place. But I think it's an enriching thing, and the thing that it helps me with now in all my relationships is that I seem to have many touch points through which I can relate to many people. And I think that can be a really powerful thing to, to be able to relate to a large number of people and say, okay, this is what it's like to be human, because I've experienced it in so many different ways.
That's exactly right. Differences don't have to be scary. That's something that I'm finding out more and more. As someone who's grown up in a very small town in Ohio, and up until after college wasn't really exposed to much of anything different from that. That it's just important to know, especially as we become more of a global community, that our differences aren't that scary, and that we're not really that different. For all of the things that we do. So I really appreciate you sharing this with us. It's really cool.
Yeah,
And
thank you. I've had such a nice time sharing this.
absolutely.
I don't think I've ever quite talked about it this way with anyone.
Yeah? Well,
yeah.
I get that a lot, but
Yeah?
that's okay. That's what we're here for. But that said, you have now successfully completed the Lee After Dark 20-minute not talking about your business challenge. Yay.
Oh,
So yeah,
that's
so
fantastic.
invisible confetti and all that. Being a man of my word, I want to make sure to give you a few minutes to talk about what you do, how people can get in touch with you, if you've got an offer that you'd like to promote. The floor is yours, my friend.
Oh, awesome. Great. Thank you. Well, I am a game and play consultant. So that means that I've not only made video games as a producer, but I offer my playfication and gamification services to other entrepreneurs to help them engage and get closer with their customers or their clients through adding game and play principles to what they do. And so yeah, this is my business. And in terms of an offer, I have a summit that's coming up in April. It's called the Playful Creative Summit. And we are inviting makers, creators, game designers, all kinds of creatives to come and talk to us about what it's like to be a playful, creative entrepreneur, business person. And I'm super excited about it. We're interviewing some really cool people that I know from the game and play space. And I'm co-hosting it with one of my friends, and he's in the creative space, creative speaking space. And so, yeah, and I think it's going to be super fun. I think this summit is going to be different than other summits because it's going to be, for me, meta, as in it's going to be playful. You're not going to be hearing the same, do this and do that, or 5 techniques for blah, but rather it's about people getting real, really talking about how to be more playful and creative in your work. It's international, so we have speakers from Finland, from UK, from different parts of the US, from Australia, from South Africa. So it's going to be super fun. And you can find me at Sandovar.com. If you are interested in up-leveling your business for 2020 and engaging with your customers at a deeper level. And if you want to reach us for the Playfication, the Playful Creative Seminar Summit coming up, then I can send you a URL for that too. And
wonderful.
Yeah. So
yeah, if you shoot that over to me with email or message or something, I'll make sure that goes in the show notes so that they can contact directly and get registered for that. Sounds fantastic. I know a lot of the summits that I've seen what you're talking about. I've been in a few of them where I'm just blah, 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 blah. So I'm really glad that you're doing something different, and I'm excited about it. Any last words?
No, I don't have any last words. I
Okay.
guess I would say thank you so much. This is such a fun experience for me. It's the kind of things I want to do more of,
Awesome.
just because it feels easy and playful. And yeah, we all
Well,
need a bit more of that. So
well, really cool. Well, I'm so glad that you found us, and I'm glad that you spent time with us today. So thank you again very much, Alyea. Alyea. Sorry, I knew I was going to get it wrong at least once.
you did pretty good.
Yes. All right, kids, we're out of time. But if you found Lee After Dark more entertaining and relevant than most of the Drac out there, then subscribe to the Lee After Dark YouTube channel. And now get Lee After Dark in your pants. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Stitcher, Breaker, Pocket Cast, and who the heck knows where else, so you can enjoy us wherever you stick your phone. Until next time, this is Lee Rowley with my new friend, Alyea Sandovar. Be present and be well.